Okay, so Mehul, through this entire conversation, everyone would come to know eventually like what you do and what all things you're involved into. But if you had to just briefly run someone through that, what you have done till now and what you're currently involved into, so what would you be like?
So I'm a chartered accountant from India. I was born and brought up in New Delhi, and I did my articleship from KPMG, Gurgaon. I worked there for 5 years, and once I cleared my CA final exams, I decided to do an MBA, and I, made like applications, studied for the GMAT, and applied to schools all over the world. I wanted to get international experience,
Yeah.
and then I got through Imperial College in London, and I came here for an MBA, and during my MBA, I specialized in subjects like strategy, brand development, as well as international business. And then I started interning at these startups in London, and that really excited me because I was helping them with their market entry strategy or their growth strategy and the product strategy, and it really gave me a flavor of how London works and how the entrepreneurship scene here is very exciting. Um, and then I did like 4 5 internships during that time, and then I moved back to India to do another short piece of work for a manufacturing firm, and then I moved here again in 2018, and I've been working as a strategy consultant at this boutique strategy firm. And on the side, I started this a portal to help students because I felt like there was a lack of mentorship and guidance when I was starting my career. And I used to get a lot of messages from these young kids, who were just starting out their CA journey, wanted to do an MBA. And then I said, I think it's time that I share my experience somewhere. And then I just decided to go for YouTube because I think, in my experience, I feel like visually when you explain something, the person understands it the most. So that's why I chose YouTube as my platform, and then on the side I started the Instagram page, and now we're almost like 5,000 students strong community, and I get so many messages, and I'm just trying to reach as many people as I can and help as many people as I can. So that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, about the helping students part. So just to put it out there, like this is my first podcast in which not a single question is penned down by me. Like all these
Wow.
questions in this are from people who already watch your content, and I know them because they are some of my viewers, some of my friends in college and all. And I said them that, hey, I'm up to this podcast. And firstly, their reaction was that, okay, how is this happening? Like, this not happening. And that's when I just said then that if you have some questions, do send them out. And they are like, they're sending me lists of questions that
Oh, that's
just
so
ask me.
nice. I'm feeling so grateful for that. Thank you so much. That's such a sweet thing to
Yeah.
say. And it's unbelievable how everybody knows everyone.
Yeah.
It's really great. Thank you.
So I'll try to cover as many questions as I've received. The
Yeah.
first one being that I too have been through a commerce stream, like in my 11th and 12th. And
Yeah.
when we are in that duration, everyone has this entire BuzzFeed of that, CA is the climax. CA is the biggest degree of commerce, and that's why many people just like into peer pressure and all, they take up chartered accountancy, that okay, everyone is doing CA, so I should also take up CA. So
Yeah.
particularly I wanted to know that what was your intention behind taking up CA? Was it that everyone is doing it, or had you planned out something that okay, I taking CA, this would be my path ahead?
Honestly, Morris, I didn't plan to do CA. I stumbled upon it. I think like a lot of students. It was actually my dad who was insisting that I take up and become a professional. So he really wanted me to do like a professional degree, and I didn't listen to him. So when I graduated from high school in commerce, and then I got through Delhi University, I went to college in like regular college in my first year. And during that time, I sort of realized that I had a lot of free time, and I felt like the BCom degree wasn't, because I was always a straight A student, so I was just like, there's so much free time and I should be doing more. And that's when I started talking to my dad again, and then he said, just try to take the entrance exam and let's see how it goes.
Yeah.
So I spoke to my friends and people who were chartered accountants who had been working in the field in different, either in their own firms or in big corporates for the last like 10 15 years. And then I think that's when I sort of got inclined to this course. It wasn't planned, but when I studied hard for the entrance and I did really well, I got got a distinction in the foundation course. So I think I said, okay, this is the path for me, and I should just give it my all and do it.
Yeah. Next, what I wanted to ask you was that right now we can say that you have achieved a fair share of success in your professional life, in what you're doing as your hobbies and all. So, what would you say that, okay, these are the traits that have changed in me from when I was a student pursuing chartered accountancy to where I'm now, having some of the big names in my CV and all of that stuff achieved?
I think if I compare myself right now to the 19, 18-year-old me many years ago, I think at that time, because I had always been a straight A student, I was from DPS RK Puram and in Delhi, and they put a lot of emphasis on academic success. And every year I got this, scholar badge. Like, they really highlight people who do really well academically. So I never faced sort of failure or not doing well in life. So I think CA, when I did not clear the final exams in my first attempt, made me a really stronger person. I think the CA course I've come out of the CA course um, uh, more, I believe in myself more to achieve difficult things. And I think if I've been through the worst, I think that was the worst time in my life when I did not clear the exams in the first attempt. So I think when I look back, I think if I could survive that, and I went through some mental health issues and I felt really low, and I got out of it and I cleared. And so I think, yeah, the only comparison and the only thing that I've learned is work hard and believe in yourself and yours, and it all falls into place.
Yeah. So basically, just stronging you up and making you
Yeah, a lot of
emotionally tough.
mentally strong, emotional strength, all of that.
Yeah. So moving on to my next question, which is that you already have names of big four C companies in your CV.
Yeah.
That inherently meant that you had a good professional career. Like you did not have to do anything else, just CA and the names of all these firms in your name. It means that you are earning a good package moving forward. Then why did MBA happen? Like, what made you think that, okay, now I should also pursue MBA?
So there were multiple things that were playing in my mind that time. I honestly, because I started doing CA, I left my regular college to pursue CA, and then I started working at such a young age of 20, like full-time job at the age of 20, like all CA students, and also studying on the side. And I always craved for that university experience. That was one of the reasons that I wanted to do an MBA. And also I think CA is a great degree to have, but it's also very specific in the finance field, and I wasn't sure if I just wanted to be a finance related person or just have a finance focused career at that time. And something like an MBA would open up a lot of doors in terms of general management skills for me. So like an MBA helps you with so many things of how an organization works. It helps you gather knowledge of how to strategize for success, or how to set HR policies and organizational ethics and all of that. So
Yeah.
that was the reason why I think I wanted to do an MBA, especially when I had I didn't want to be narrow focused at such a young age. I wanted to understand everything and then pick my niche.
So basically opening up doors for more opportunities.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And
So yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying another reason why I wanted to do an MBA was I wanted to study abroad and get international exposure. That's the reason why for me an MBA was just a stepping stone to get that international experience as well.
Understood. So having said that, right now also there are many CA fresher students who are thinking that, okay, after pursuing my CA, I would look up to an MBA degree. So what would be your advice to students who are right now at that stage?
To anyone who is currently pursuing CA and wants to do an MBA, I think the one thing you should do is just talk to as many number of people as you can. Read about it, research, figure out where you want to study, why you want to study it. Don't do an MBA just for the sake of it. There has to be some goal in mind. Like for me, it was getting that in university experience, deciding what I want to do later, but then also getting that, going abroad, living by myself. So figure out why you want to do it. Talk to people who have done it, and make a plan. So let's say you want to get into an IIM or an ISB. Make a list of the things that you'll need to to make a strong, solid application, and then work backwards from it. Yeah. And then, of course, focus on your CA exams at the same time. Don't neglect what you're doing right now just because you have this future goal. But yes, keep that dream, keep that vision, and then research on it.
Yeah, understood. Next, what I wanted to cover was that right now, if you had the option to go back in your career graph, like looking back, would you make any changes that could be in terms of I would not have perceived this degree, instead I would do that? That would be in terms of company choices, that instead of interning at these companies I would choose some other companies. So is there anything that you would like to change in your career path?
I wouldn't want to change anything because I don't regret things. I think everything is a part of your story, and everything leads to the next opportunity.
Yeah.
So I actually got my current job in the UK because I had that 5 years of work ex at KPMG in India, so something like KPMG is recognized around the world. So,
Yeah.
and then of course, because I did my MBA, I had, a degree in the UK that's also played a major role. And of course, I got the MBA degree because, again, I had 5 years of KPMG, and I was a chartered accountant, and I had that experience. So I wouldn't, I don't think I'd do anything differently when it came to the company choices or the work experience. But yes, I wish I asked more questions, or I was more confident from a younger age. Those are the things I think I really, I was very shy and underconfident in the early years of my career.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing I'd want to change.
Yeah. So next was this question wherein this guy asks me that when you enter into a chartered accountancy classroom, so chartered accountancy from its very first has this reputation that, okay, this is a elite degree, this is a hard degree. So generally intelligent students only enter into pursuing this degree. So now once when you are part of a class wherein there are 50-100 students studying for the same thing, you might be very smart at what you are doing, but there are then 100 others in the same classroom who are, if not more than, actually as smart as you. So in such competitive scenario, how do you stand out? Like, how do you say that, okay, even though there are 100 students sitting over here pursuing the same thing, I am different from the rest of the 99? How do you create that mark?
I think that whatever you do, there will be people who are more intelligent than you. There will be people who are more like sharper than you. They may be able to, grasp a concept quicker than you. I think the two things that you can do for, as anyone could be an average student, is over prepare and over deliver. Whether you're an employee, whether you're doing your own business, whether you are studying for anything, do more than everyone else, and then deliver and show that you're doing more than everyone else. I think that's the only way you can stand out in today's world. You have to become irreplaceable. If you're working in any firm, if there are 5 others who are the same grade as you, or if you quit, 5 others can join, you have to become indispensable for your boss. You have to become that go-to person, and that will only happen if before every client meeting, before any sort of presentation, before any report, just do your best work, like go beyond what's expected, above and beyond. That's what they say. Just go out of your way and shine bright. That's what I would say. Just that's the only way to beat competition.
Yeah, but continuing in this, I wanted to segue into a topic, which was that in all these competitive degrees and in general also in life, when we talk about competition, like many people give out this advice that, hey, you don't need to compete with anyone else. It's like, it's just you within yourself. Like, you need to compete with your past. Now, as much as I like listening to this philosophy, it's not possible. Like right now, even if you go out to purchase a phone, you're comparing between 10 devices. So it's practically not possible. And even in organizations, I guess there are proper charts made that which employee is performing better than the other. So given the situation we are living in, it's not possible that, we can deny competition or we can get ourselves out of it. So we have to face the fact that we need to live in a competitive world. Now, how do you survive in it to the point that you are also standing out in the competition, but you're not allowing it to eat up your mental health? Like, it's not eating you up, but at the same time, you're also competing hard enough.
I think that's a very tricky question. And because comparison does lead to, sort of self-pity, or like you just keep judging yourself. And the only way to do that is just believe in yourself and keep remember that if you are in a room full of people, you are there for a reason. So you are valued already. If you're sitting in a room, if you're in an organization, or if you've been called to present or been called to be a part of an organization, it's because of the steps you've already climbed, and because you have achieved certain things already. So it's very important for us to make a list of our achievements and the things we've already done in life, because it's very easy to keep thinking about the next thing, and we forget about the things we've already done. So I
Gratitude.
think, yes, gratitude, and also just remembering what you have already achieved,
Yeah.
and remember that you are there for a reason, and you're doing your best, and just do your best. And I think it's tricky to not compare yourselves, because we do compare ourselves with others. But just remember that you're on this journey, and your story is unique and it's different from everyone else's. And then just do the best you can in your role of work.
Yeah.
That's all you can do.
Understood. Next, what I wanted to ask is that in the starting of this podcast, you said that the reason behind you taking up CA was that you had a lot of time in your hand and you didn't want it to just waste away. Now there are many 22-year-old students who are in their college, and
Yeah.
similarly, like the college has no attendance benchmark, so they have a lot of time in their hands to burn out. But
Yeah.
they do not want to take up like any professional course. They do not want to take up any heavy loaded course. So what
Fair
should
enough.
they do with their time so that they do not get addicted to the indiscipline, to the waste time and all that? What should they do of their time? They have so much of time.
I think not everybody has to do a professional course. Not everybody has
Yeah.
to be over ambitious in life. I think you should enjoy your college days. Sometimes I look back and I think, was I too harsh on myself to leave regular college and just do CA? So I would just say enjoy your college days. And of course, I think one of the things we can do as young students is stay curious and inquisitive about the things that are happening around you. Just read, watch videos, watch TED Talks, talk to people, build your network. Those are the things you can do. Maybe go volunteer at some organization, or find a cause you believe in,
Yeah.
and stick to that cause. Like, for example, you're doing so much with your podcast, and things you're doing on the side along with regular college, because that
Yeah.
excites you. And if you follow your passions during those early years of your life, it'll really help you guide and make the path, and pave the path for the next few years of your career. So use these years to figure out what you like and what are your interests, and build your skills on those interests, and gain as much as experience, talk to people, and learn about other things. Like have an open mind in your young early years.
Yeah, got it. Next, what I wanted to ask was that when we talk about degrees, qualifications, and all that is cool. Like everyone goes through college, everyone studies, everyone gets that marks, information, knowledge, and all. But
Mm-hmm.
what are the skills or what are the traits one needs to learn as a young adult, which would make him better an employee in the future? Like how to increase your employability skills?
Make him or her.
Yeah,
Could be
exactly.
her also.
Yeah.
I think two things you should do are, first of all, build your communication skills. Those are very essential to because that will build your base for the next few years of your career. So even if it's like how to conduct a meeting, or how to write an email, how to write a report, those are all types of communication skills. How to be standing up straight, your non-verbal communication. And the next is your people skills. So you should be good at building relationships with people in your organization, outside your organization. So those two things are very important. And I think the best way to do that is observe people around you, especially your seniors, your bosses. See how they are conducting themselves, how they are communicating, and ask them questions when you get stuck. There's no such thing as a stupid question. That's what I say, and that's what I wish I told my younger self. So
Yeah.
ask questions and really observe how they have reached their level of success. And
Yeah.
that doesn't even need to be people in your organization. You can watch so many videos, and there's so much content of people who are successful in their field. Watch the interviews, and just see how they conduct themselves, and how they have built their network or their relationships with people around them, because they say your network is your net worth.
Yeah.
So really pick up on your people skills, and stay in touch with people who helped you, and help other people as well. I think we should all be in a community where we support each other.
Yeah.
And those are the two things I think you can do other than regular work.
Yeah. So next, this guy asks a question wherein he says that, doing an articleship from a big four company, many people have said him that you won't be getting enough time to prepare for your CA finals. Like if you take up articleship from a big company, that company would take off all your time, and that's why your final exams would be affected. So first of all, I want you to break it out, that is it a myth or is it a fact? And if it is a fact, then how to overcome that?
I think that's a myth, because if you're working in a smaller firm and there are lesser number of employees, of course your responsibilities will be more in that organization. So there's no guarantee that if you're working in a small firm, you'll get 6 months of study leave. That's not
Yeah.
how it works. So that's the number one myth. And secondly, I have so many friends from my articleship days who absolutely excelled at their client work and who cleared all their exams in their first attempt, as well as some of them ended up getting a rank. So if they have done that sitting in KPMG and working, you know uh, really really hard around the clock, as well as making the most of their study leave time and clearing the exams in the first attempt, I think if they can do it, anybody can do it, right? So
Yeah.
I think just make the most of your times during articleship, at weekends. And if you are struggling, you talk to your managers, tell them, I have, these are my priorities, I want to be able to attend my classes, I want to be able to have 2-3 hours at night to revise my concepts, and really negotiate on your study leave period, 3 to 4 months if you're giving both the groups, or if you're taking one group then it's 2 months, and then make the most of your study leave period. Just be organized and plan your studies well, and it is definitely possible.
Cool. So this next question, almost every student had this same question in their list of questions, which was that about articleship from a big four company. There are like some things going around. One of which says, as the pro, being that if you have big names in your CV, that obviously means that you have a bright future ahead. Just because your next employer, by seeing that thing, gets a brand recognition that okay, this guy's worked with these big companies, so he ought to be a good employee. That's one. That's a
Okay.
pro, definitely. In saying that, some
Mm-hmm.
people also say that working in big four companies is a con in a way that like in big four companies you don't get to experiment a lot because they have proper organizational structures. So you are pushed into one particular department and you get to work, you get the exposure only of that particular department. So it's good for your resume, but you do not develop as like overall as a CA. So like what's your take on that?
I think there's going to be pros and cons of working in any organization, always. So for me, I think KPMG was like a passport to the next phase of my life, because it's such a big brand and
Yeah.
it is recognized around the world. So it's not even just in India, it's anywhere in the world. I'm not saying that if you're working in a small firm, it's a bad thing. But if you're working in a big firm, you have to make the most of that opportunity and feel blessed that you are a part of a big firm.
Yeah.
So I think agreed that you are, just in one department of work, but also you learn the way, because their quality of deliverables are going to be the best, right? Because they are the top firms in the world, so their quality of deliverables have to be the best. They will have you will get the exposure to some of the best client brands in the country. So because all the big brands want to work with the big four, and that's sadly the matter. It's true.
Yeah.
So the exposure you get, the kind of work you're doing is so is grand. So I think the pros sort of outweigh the cons in the case of working at a big four, because after 3 years you can always pick another field. Like if you're in audit, if you're in tax, if you don't like it, after you qualify, just switch. But at least you'll have those solid 3 years of being in a very specialized piece of doing specialized pieces of work in the best firm. So I think just think about it like that.
Yeah. Okay. Next.
I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, completely.
Okay.
Next, one guy comes to me and asks that if a CA wishes to get into consulting roles, but he isn't able to do an MBA, then what are the options? Like, what is the passport to a consulting role apart from an MBA?
If you're working in a big firm, you can try for a department switch to either general advisory, move into general advisory, or I would just say like find smaller boutique niche firms who are consulting firms, and then build your experience up. So you can join a small organization which has 10 to 20 employees, but they're getting good projects, and then use that experience to apply to a bigger firm. It could be maybe even a Bain or a BCG, because if you've done good quality work at a small firm, it will always be recognized if you move into a big firm. So
Yeah.
I think you can just start small and then build your
Scale up.
experience. Yeah, scale up, build your experience, build your expertise, and just gain your knowledge as a consultant. Like I'm working at a small firm right now because that's what I wanted to do. I had worked at a big firm and I wanted to be a part of a smaller firm now. It's only 150 consultants where I work, and every consultant has such great responsibility to build the business of the entire firm together. So you're actually, it's like a very startup-y kind of an environment. So that's what you get when you're working in a small firm. You get that startup feel. You feel a part of something that's growing and something, and you're building with the team. So
Yeah.
so join a small firm, join a niche firm, and then gain that exposure and experience.
Understood. Next, there's this girl who is very fascinated by your entire journey of moving abroad, studying abroad, and like working over there. So she asked that, like, how did you, number one, manage to live alone and also handle your studies along with that? And right now, like, how are you managing your job, living in a new country, and like, how is that happening?
It hasn't been easy.
Okay.
It hasn't been easy, but I would just say that, I had always lived with my parents when I was in India. And when I moved here, I was living in a studio by myself, all alone, in a small apartment. And I was going to for MBA classes, and then going for the events that happened after the classes. And then what I also did was I reached out to entrepreneurs on my own, and I built my network on my own by going to other events outside of university.
Yeah.
So I think if I can do it, anybody can do it. You just have to put yourself out there and reach out to people. I think people mostly want to help other people. So I really got in touch with people on LinkedIn. I found out what were the events that were happening around me that interested me. At first, I went to all the events, like of all banks, startups, something like McKinsey. And then when I decided I did not want to get into a very niche finance kind of role again after my MBA, I stopped going for those type of events, and I sort of followed my niche, and started going for more entrepreneurship type of events.
Yeah.
So I think what you have to do is just um, when you're moving to a new country, you have to really get used to how the culture works, how people in that country, what are their sort of ways of working, and that will only happen when you have more conversations. I think as Indians, we are at an advantage compared to many other countries because all our education is done in English. So we are
Yeah.
already that communications. There's no like communication gap because I was able to communicate and understand everything in English.
Yeah.
So that way I was all set. And I think England is a very open country. It's very diverse. There are people from all over the world over here. So I never faced something like racism or stereotypes or anything like that. So I think it was very warm and welcoming. And now with work, what I do is I work Monday to Friday, and I try to churn out 1 or 2 hours in the evening for my YouTube stuff or my Instagram stuff. And then on the weekends, it's all about things like this. It's all about working on my side hustle. So I'm enjoying it. As long as I'm enjoying it, I keep going.
Yeah. Understood. This next question was that when usually students take up heavy loaded degrees, they tend to focus that, okay, 24 hours, all 24 goes into my studies, because at no point of time I want to miss on my studies part. In saying that, apart from studies, there are many different aspects that you need to work upon, like your personality skills, like your communication skills and all. So number one, how should students approach this thing? Like, how should students develop all these co-curricular skills? And number two, if you had to put out a student's timetable today, out of 24 hours, how many hours would you dedicate to like working on these other skills?
I think you like when you say personality development, I think most of your personality is developed when you're out there in the world talking to people and working in a workplace. You can't be sitting at home and develop a personality, especially if you're doing like so much self-study.
Yeah.
So if you're doing like a hardcore course, I think what I used to do was, if I'm studying for 5 to 8 hours a day, I would take out 2 to 3 hours for doing other things, like whether it was reading a book or watching a TED talk or watching entrepreneurs success stories. So those were things that interested me. There could be other things that interest you. Maybe you're interested in photography, fashion, design, whatever your skill set is, whatever you enjoy. Take out time for that, and then have conversations with others, read blogs, reach out to people. That's all I would say. I think your personality is developed once you're out of the study mode, and once you're out there
Talking to
exposed
more
to other
people.
people. Yeah, you have to be talking to
Yeah,
others. You can't be developing a personality sitting on your own.
yeah.
So that happens after you're done studying, after you're finished with your hardcore study course,
Yeah.
and then you
This
go and get
question,
that experience.
this question, because some people had this myth that you need to sit down 2 hours every day. That okay, I'm developing my personality. So that's not
No,
happening. Yeah,
I think you can read as much as theory about communication or about relationship building or how to build a network. That will only happen when you practice in real life.
yeah,
So your personality gets developed through what you do on a single day outside of your home.
yeah. Next was by this guy. So he's not a student. He actually works at KPMG India. And
Okay.
he had this doubt that he comes from an MBA background and is
Mhm.
currently working in the role of analyst. Now,
Okay.
he wants to get a job into the consultancy field abroad. So, like, what is the gateway? Like, how is that happening? If there is any way out there.
Uh, if he's working in KPMG, I think as an analyst, I think he's probably recently joined the firm. So I think he should just build his work experience in KPMG India, and then you can, KPMG has a lot of these secondment opportunities to go to other countries. So what he can do is talk to his seniors once he has built a reputation within the firm, and just request them to put his name for any international openings that
Experiences,
there
yeah.
are. Yeah. So like I have met people in London who are from KPMG India who are here on secondment and for a couple of years, and then they go back and then they apply to another country sometimes, or they come back to London again. So it is possible. You just have to build your reputation in the organization, and speak about it often enough that they know that you're interested in an international sort of role.
Yeah. So
So if
put
they
it
if they
out there.
don't know, yeah, put it out there. You have
Yeah.
to put it out there, and of course, something like a KPMG, EY, Deloitte, they are always looking to move their employees around. So it
Yeah.
is definitely possible, and that's what I would say. Just stick to KPMG, and then think of moving to another of one of their branches.
Yeah. So there is this kid who is like apparently a geek into the entire chartered accountancy field, and he was the one who introduced me to your channel and said that you need to bring her to the podcast and all. So he has this question that apart from CA, there are many better degrees into the field like ACCA or CPA maybe. But for some weird reason, the Indian tuition classes or the Indian colleges do not promote that much. Like not many students even know that some things like these even exist. So, what are your opinions? Like, why is it such a thing? And secondly, should a student consider taking up these degrees instead of a regular Indian chartered accountancy? So, what's your take on that?
I absolutely agree. I think there is a lack of guidance and mentorship for young students. And it's only by luck or by chance that we get to know about certain degrees. Either our friends are doing it or someone in our family has done it. So I do agree that there is a lack of knowledge. But again, your knowledge will only increase if you're reading articles, if you're talking to people, listening to podcasts like yours,
Yeah,
just to figure out what other people are doing. So keep an open mind, and keep listening to things around that are happening around you, and the key trends that are happening in the industry that you're interested in.
yeah,
And talking about the second part of your question, which was which degree is better, I think you can't really compare two degrees, because something like an ACCA would be more useful if you want to move to another country and practice in the UK, for example, as a chartered accountant. But if you want to stay in India, if you want to work for an Indian firm, then of course there's nothing better than an Indian CA degree. So it all depends on what you want from life and what you want from your career, and you have to make your decisions accordingly to what your plan is. So I wouldn't compare a degree being better than the other. It just depends on your journey and your path.
yeah,
So that'll only happen when once you figure out, like, introspect, sit down and really think to yourself of where you see your life, where you see your career in the next 5 to 10 years, and then make decisions accordingly.
yeah.
And talk to people who have been there, done that in the field.
Yeah, but over here, this guy wanted to add that, okay, as students, we get it that, not many people have the information that something like this even exists. But for the
Yeah.
teachers, they for sure know that, okay, these are also the options. So is there any special reason why not many coaching classes promote foreign degrees and they usually stick to do the Indian CA, do the Indian CA? So is there some special reason for that?
Honestly, I think not many teachers would even know that there are so many degrees out there. Like there's something like a SEMA, there's something like a CPA, there's something like an ACCA. Not everyone has knowledge of all those degrees. Like, so I think teachers can only guide what they are aware of and what knowledge they have. So if
Yeah,
they are only aware of the Indian CA degree, then they can only guide their students on that particular course. Like I get
yeah,
so many questions on the CMA course or the CFA course. I haven't done those degrees.
yeah,
So what I've started doing is interviewing people who have done those degrees to increase my knowledge and also connect them with my
viewership.
people who are following my channels.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. So I don't think it's right for any teacher to guide their students on something they're not aware of. So
yeah,
I think that's something that the student has to do themselves. They can't be dependent on one source of one teacher, one professor,
yeah.
or just their parents. That has to be something you do on your own. So I wouldn't blame the teachers for having a lack of knowledge of. They're doing their best in the in what they can.
Yeah. I like this question. It kind of resonates to a video of yours, which I saw just this morning, which was
Mhm.
your particular video about being productive while working from home. So this
Yeah.
question essentially asks that right now with the life you are living in, I'm pretty much sure that you are involved into multiple tasks. That could be your hobbies, that could be your profession, career, and personal
Yeah.
life. How do you balance your time between all these tasks, and how do you switch between tasks? Like suppose if you're doing something, most people what they do is that if they're working on something, the next, and when they take a break, so the next 1 hour they just waste it out, or they probably scroll through their phones. So how do you switch between tasks? That is the number one question. And number two, how do you maintain work life balance? How do you manage your time in that scenario?
That's a very, very good question. I think everybody procrastinates a little. Not everybody can be productive around the clock,
Yeah,
and that's fair enough. I think what I do is when I wake up in the morning, I think of the top 2 to 3 things that I need to get done that day. Like for today, I had to, I had this podcast interview. For work tomorrow, I have a client workshop, a very important client workshop. So after this podcast, I'll have my lunch and then I'll sit to practice what I'm going to say in that workshop. And then in the evening I want to shoot content for my next video. So when I know that I have these 3 things to do, I have to get all of it done. Like the client workshop is tomorrow and the podcast is today, so it
yeah,
has to happen.
yeah,
Then when it comes to shooting content, let's say if I don't have time for that because that's my lowest priority today, so
yeah,
then if it doesn't happen, then I'll still prioritize the client workshop and then maybe shoot content tomorrow. So you have to prioritize your tasks for each day. And once you know that there is a deadline, when you know that you have to do it today, then you won't be distracted. There'll be less distractions and you'll be more productive. And
yeah,
when it comes to things like scrolling on your phone, one thing I do is I put my phone on charge in another room and I work in another room so that I don't go back and pick up my phone again and again.
yeah,
That way I'm really in the zone. And I also put my headphones on, I put soft like motivational music, and I'm just in the flow. So
yeah,
think of things that work for you. There are different things that work for everyone. So that's what I would say. And for work life balance, I'm a very social person, so I really like meeting my friends or talking to my friends, talking to my family. So that's my fuel, that fuels my energy. So once I'm done for the day, I make it a point to either connect with a friend or just pick up the phone and do a video call to my family or my friends back home. I think it's very important to just cut off after a productive day so that you get a good night's rest and then you start the same cycle the next day.
yeah.
So don't put too much on your plate. Also just have those 1 or 2 tasks that you really have to get done, and then just let the day flow as is.
Yeah. And amidst doing all these, like on an average, how many hours do you get to sleep per day?
I need to sleep 7 to 8 hours a day. I feel very unproductive otherwise the next day. And of course, when there's a deadline at work, or when I'm stressed out, I'm anxious, I don't sleep as well. I sleep 5 to 6 hours on some bad days, but then I make sure that I cover up on my sleep over the weekends.
Yeah.
So I think it's rest is very important. Keeping yourself hydrated through the day, through water, through any cup of tea or like green tea and things like that. So just keep fluids, eat healthy, and rest
Yeah.
well.
Next was this question wherein a guy asked that if someone wants to enter into the consultancy segment in a country abroad, then what are the minimum qualifications required from India? Like, do these many things and then move abroad. Then the chances of you getting into a consultancy role in a good company are good enough.
You mean like a checklist of things?
Yeah, maybe.
I think it's not as easy if you're sitting in India and you're just applying for a consulting role outside, especially with this whole COVID-19 situation. I don't think it's going to be very easy for us to just apply abroad and get a job abroad. So I think focus on getting good qualifications on your CV, get good experience on your CV, and maybe if you really want to move abroad, get an education in that country. So maybe do like a short course, 6-7 month course in that country, because that opens up your aspects to opens up your prospects to get to land a job or even an interview in a firm of that country. So if you have a degree from the same country, it's more useful to be recognized. Like I had an Imperial College degree on my CV, and I think that's the reason why I was called for an interview. And then when I went for the interview, then I used my KPMG India experience to talk through the interviews. But I think the reason why I got a call was because I had an international degree on my CV. So I think if you want to move abroad, think of things that you can do to get that international degree on your CV.
Understood. Next, this question was that right now things are changing a lot. A lot of people are questioning formal education as a concept, like standardized tests and all. So do you think that right now, given the time we are living in, given COVID that has paced up things very much in the education sector, do you think that like formal education, like these chasing big degrees like MBA or probably even chartered accountancy for that per se, do you think that this entire chase would stay like 3-4 years from now, or will it be like people just learning skills from anywhere, probably the internet, and then getting hired just on the basis of the skill? Do you think that's happening?
Honestly, like I have seen that work experience it now does play a bigger role than a degree, but it's very it's a slow paced change that's happening. I wouldn't say that something like an MBA or a CA wouldn't have a value 5 to 10 years from now. It would still be valuable. The only thing I would say is that build your other skills along with any degree that you're doing, and try to do short internships, volunteering experience, get out there and hustle hard and get real life exposure and experience. That will always be a better story for you to tell in an interview than a degree you studied for. So everybody's just going to ask you questions on what projects you've led, what teams you've managed, what kind of work you've done, rather than, okay, how was high school for you or how was college life for you? Right. So I would say we are transitioning very slowly. And I read a very interesting book called The 100-Year Life. I would really recommend you reading it. It says that, how as humans, our lifespan is going to increase because life expectancy is increasing. So let's say if you're going to live for 100 years, things we've studied till the age of 20, 22 are not going to be valuable for the rest of our life. We will continuously have to do other degrees or other courses, or keep upskilling ourselves regularly throughout our career. So maybe I'll pick up a course in my 40s or in my 50s and do another degree to keep myself ahead of the competition, or keep myself abreast of what are the key trends in the industry. So I think once you've studied, don't think that you're done studying. You have to keep educating yourself. You have to keep yourself to be curious, inquisitive, keep learning new things. Like you're doing BCom right now, but you're also doing this podcast on the side, and you're learning things like talking to people, editing, and just conducting conversations. So you are opening up your whole you have a skill set that you've developed, not just commerce related subjects, but there are so many other things that have come in your life because of this podcast. So just think of things you can do on this side and keep building your skills on those things.
Yeah, understood. This point that you raised about education being a regular thing and not just a one-time process that okay you get a degree. I remember this
Yeah.
guy Vishen Lakhiani. He owns a company called Mind Valley. So they run on this concept wherein they say that they are not into any kind of formal course selling or education and all. They run this program for entrepreneurs wherein for 11 months you stay wherever you are in whichever country you are, run your business, do whatever you're doing. For the 12th month, all these entrepreneurs from different countries across the world, they gather together in one particular country. Every year they change the location, and for one particular year they come in this particular country, and then all of them are learning together. There are like guest lecturers and everything is happening. So it's like a lifetime membership. Once you become a member, it's like every year of your life you go there, you spend 1 month with fellow entrepreneurs. And I feel that that is a very good approach towards studies in general. Like if you're
That's amazing. Yeah,
progressing
that's a
every
great
year.
concept.
Yeah.
I agree with you. That's a very fantastic, uh, mission that they're on. I think it's amazing. There's nothing more that you can learn from people who are doing similar things than you, and maybe ahead 5 to 10 steps
Yeah.
than you. That's what I do. I actually watch a lot of other YouTubers who are making such amazing content, and I try to take inspiration from them,
Yeah.
um, and add my own sort of element. And my own experience to what they are saying.
Yeah.
So I think yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I agree, you can't learn better than from the experience of other people.
Yeah. This was another question which said that, according to you, like which of these two opens up better career prospects? First one, MBA from the elitist B schools of India, like the IIMs, or MBA from an average B school abroad?
Depends. I think that depends on what you want to do in your life. Again, I would say
Okay.
depends on where you want to live. If
Okay.
you want to live in India, if you want to build your network, your reputation in the Indian economy, in the Indian market, then of course there's nothing better than an IIM.
Yeah.
But if you want to move abroad and that's your sole purpose, that you would just want to get a degree and move to another country, then you can join a university that's not the top tier, but still like hustle hard, do your best in that school, get a job, and then work your way up in an organization. So it really depends on what you want to do. If you are from, let's say, not the best of best colleges in India, and you want to move abroad, many companies here don't recognize the value of those colleges. Like
Yeah.
my friend Agrima, I don't know if you saw my YouTube video. She's from Narsi Monji. She did her MBA from there, and when she was applying for a job in London, people weren't aware of that college, and it's one of the best in
In
India.
India.
So
Yeah.
it may be the best, but it didn't have much of a weightage applying for a job here. Her CFA degree had a greater weightage because it's an international degree. So you have to try and understand what you want to do, where you want to live, where you see your career, and then make the decisions accordingly.
Yeah. Understood. Next question was, this girl asks that, what are your like two opinions about this? One from the economics point of things and other from the emotional point of things. Like what are your opinions about brain drain as a concept, because that's a lot in talk right now. So one from the economics point of view, like many people say that if it affects the home country, so does it really affect, or is it in a way better for the country? Number one, that's the mathematical side of things, and number two, that entire Swadesh vibe or the entire emotional side of it. So what's your take on that?
I think being an NRI, I feel more patriotic living here.
Okay.
I feel more attached to my country living here, because I don't think you need to be living in your country to be patriotic. You
Okay.
can be outside in any country representing your country and representing the people of your country, of your representing your culture. So I think the concept of brain drain is there, but it is happening for a reason, right? Like people
Yeah.
feel like the competition is high, or people feel like they can get a better quality of life for their next generation in another country. So if it's happening, there are things that need to change in India, um, and that's a matter. It's the truth. Like
Yeah.
things like women's safety, or students committing suicide. There's a lot of pressure, so there are things that are happening that are wrong and that need to be changed. And I think no matter where you live, you can always be connected to your home. I know that if I ever want to move back, it's still home for me.
Yeah.
My plan is to go visit my friends and family at least two to three times a year, and my husband and I invest in the stock market in India. So we are still pumping money back into the economy. So as NRIs, we do realize that those are responsibilities that we have. And my YouTube channel is exclusively focused on Indian students. And that's for a reason. I think if I have to share my knowledge, it has to be to people from my own
Community.
land and my own
Yeah.
own home. So
Yeah.
I think in our own way, as NRIs or people abroad, we are doing a little bit to keep supporting the economy back home, and whether it's in the form of remittances going back in, or in the form of sharing our knowledge and our struggles
Yeah.
sitting abroad. I think you can play a small role in your own way.
Yeah. The last question for this podcast would be that now you have been through this entire conversation. You have heard like you have answered every question. If you could, if you wanted to explain someone in a minute why they need to listen to this entire conversation, then what would that be?
Oh wow, okay. I would say do watch this episode or listen to this podcast if you are someone who is young and confused and really want to sort of try and understand what more you can do above and beyond your degree or your work experience to shine as an employee or shine as a student. Then do listen to this podcast and follow my YouTube channel if you're a student who's struggling with things. I think we're a big community trying to connect with each other, and of course, remember to support other students and support other people and support podcasts like this that are doing such great things.
Yeah, all of your handles would be linked in the description, and thank you for giving your time, and thank you for this podcast. Like, it was really good conversation.
Thank you so much, Morris, and I'll also share your page and everything on my channel, and make sure that everybody watches it.
Yeah,
and listens to it.
Yeah, for sure.